Hello, and welcome back to another in-depth Ciat Lonbarde dive. Today we'll be doing the Cocoquantus, also termed as the tube through which you squeeze your jelly ass by Peter Blasser. Before we begin, I want to give a quick shout out to Dylan. He's a friend of mine in the Ciat Lonbarde community who's been making amazing videos, including the explanation of the Ciat Lonbarde iceberg, where he goes in depth into explaining maybe some of the most esoteric depths of the Ciat Lonbarde world or ecosystem. Go give Dylan a shout out and a like and a subscribe and watch his video. Also made a video on the 9-volt Slim system, or the Slim series, which is very similar to the Plum Butter. It's a remix on some of the circuits on the Plum Butter, making them super compact and user-friendly to DIY, even more so than the Rolls 5 stuff. So that's a great resource for getting some Plum Butter sounds in a DIY version. Also, before we go into the Coco, I forgot to mention this in the Plum Butter video, but a note on the Man with the Red Steam was its own set of synthesizer modules that were built into a synth called the Man with the Red Steam in 2001, and that's just another snippet from the Plum Butter, the name, the Man with the Red Steam, where that comes from. So yes, the Cocoquantus starts with the Ambrazier. Units in 2004, which were simple delay units based on an 8-bit delay that Peter built discreetly. I'm pretty sure, like, built the delay from scratch instead of using like a chip, but I'm not sure if the Ambrazier has that or not. There was also there was a fancy Ambrazier on the right, and then there's the Shrine Ambrazier, which included filters on the left over here in this image. And you can read about everything that this does. Here's a Reddit post that someone made about their shrine and all the different things that the shrine did. Here is a comb over of, or like here is a screen that goes on top of the Ambrazier to show you what it does. So there's 3 buffers, buttons for the freeze capabilities. You could toggle it on and off. So the Ambrazier also had a noise module that was a part of the circuit design that I assume comes from the dust from either the Man with the Red Steam or some of his older designs, such as the Nabra or other instruments he has that had individual modules. So cats here, I assume, is the filter, and then there is a crazy like modulation section and envelope. And then this is the description for the Shrine Ambrazier, which introduced like flipping and skipping through the buffer, so you can change how much the randomness affects the flip and skip, sort of in like, looks like it's in like a pin matrix sort of way, where it's just knobs that go to different things and you can control the amount, kind of like a matrix mixer, rather than with patch points or patch cables. And then this had 2 filters instead of 1, and had a ring mod instead of the noise. And then the envelopes are still there, and I think some other things change. But yeah, you can manually affect these buffers, or you can automate them with the different clocks. The Tranoe is another Ambrazier in this series that just furthers this idea of 8-bit delay. There's not too much documentation on exactly what everything in this does, but I assume that it evolves off of the Ambraziers. Here are some more images of the Tranoe. Peter was really into leather at the time, as you can see, and the buttons underneath the leather, which make like a weird skin-like feeling, which must be interesting to play with. Here's a picture of Demon Face, which is a duo that does noise music, playing the Tranoe. Pretty recently, I think this video is from like 20... After the Tranoe comes the ForHorTorTor, which is a very short-lived circuit that sort of is an extension of the Ambrazier and Tranoe with all the 8-bit digital delay stuff included, but introducing more of the flip and skip, flipping and skipping and slowing and ramping of the Tranoe. So it's sort of condensing a lot of the different circuits that Peter was playing around with at the time for these different instruments. And it was available as a kit, or maybe a very short-lived kit. Yeah. The Cocolase is basically the portable Tranoe. So this is right after the ForHorTorTor. Peter condensed the giant Tranoe with the big knobs into this sort of delay unit that's square and has 2 delays that are panned hard left and hard right, modulation section, that's the Ciat, and modulation pins that can be patched to change the flip and skip of the delay buffers, and buttons that will inject those into the delay. This has quite a bit of documentation actually on Peter's site. So there's 2 delay units that have input volume control, feedback. You can change the speed via CV, and there's a 10 inverter that will either push the speed upwards with voltage or downwards with voltage. And then IP, which I think is taken out of the Coco, sets the breakpoint or like the threshold for the flip in script to articulate around via what it receives from the input. The Sadrasi unit is what the Coco's Quantusi is, which is 8 oscillators that can feedback, and they're the brain of sort of the modulation section of the Cocolase. So the buttons next to the modulation bar are actually the buttons that change the rate of the oscillators from the modulation bars, and the big pin, I assume, is the oscillator output, and the little brass pins are the ones that are inputs or androgynous nodes for modulation. The Cocolase also had a single plexi unit, or maybe he made multiple, but I like when Peter does the plexis. This is a poem by Peter. I think this is sort of related to Peter's idea on jelliness and squishiness, in that the modulation section, the Sadrasi, is a sort of a tube for possibilities of modulation. It's a vessel or an environment for squeezing around and creating weird jelly-like textures and modulations that are ever-changing and organic. Here are some pictures of the Cocolase, with, I believe, silk screened. Somewhere in between the Cocolase and the Cocoquantus comes the cocostuber.
And I'd like to imitate that sound into this sample through this chucker mic.
Turn it down and speed and keep on singing now. I'm touching the bars as I put this sound in to make it more funky. Now
I'm going to insert sounds with the buttons. So now I can put new stuff in over here. Let's make that pitch also variable. And we'll see what this effect of the sound of the register does.
which is the Cocolase with the introduction of filters. And cocostuber had bars to control the filters. So it was an 8-bit sampling delay with resonant filters, sort of a more compact version of the Shrine Ambrazier, if that makes sense. But still had the Ciat section. The cocostuber also introduced the deer horn circuit, which I talked about in the in the plum butter video, to the sides of it. So it was the introduction of the filter and the deer horn circuit. I also want to note that Rodrigo Constanzo also made a digital software instrument called the monolase. So the Cocolase was also made as a pool act. So pool is an environment for Max MSP that has a bunch of different modules that can be patched together in a digital environment. And someone, I think it's also Rodrigo is involved in this, made a sort of pool version that has a Quantusi section, or like a matrix section that basically patches all the different points of the Cocolase, and you have the same functionalities as most of the Cocolase. Yeah. And then the Cocoquantus finally is what came after the Cocolase. The original one had the plexiglass cuprobrassum, I think is what it's called. Cuprobrassum. The original Cocoquantus had the plexiglass cuprobrassum for the center for the LEDs, and the new ones do not, which is just a manufacturing thing, I think, to cut down time on manufacturing big units. They took that element out of it, which is sad because it's pretty, but it makes it faster to make. And Peter has a guide on how to make the cuprobrassum on his page, which I can find. And the Cocoquantus, what changed from the Ciat section is now the Quantusi, and I have an in-depth demo on the Cocoquantus if you want to know like everything about it. So what changed from the Ciat section of the Cocoquantus is now the Quantusi section, which is 5 triangle wave oscillators with input for CV to control them. They have switches for the range of the oscillators. They have a stepped output that samples. There's an input for choosing the oscillator that it's sampling, whether it's sampling itself or a different oscillator, and you can switch that by sending voltage to the green input on the Quantusi, and then it has your oscillator output, which is the red. It has a master pitch and a chaos knob that modulates the oscillators against each other. It has 2 stereo inputs and one dual mono input, basically. Just stereo input that sums down to mono for piezo, and then it has a microphone input that's XLR and individual outputs for those. The difference between the one in this picture and the new one is that the newer Cocos have envelope followers for the microphone input and the piezo input, whereas this one does not. It just has one white out. Alright, thank you for watching. Hopefully you guys like this format of video so I can do some more, even though I recorded it kind of all over the place, which is usually how I do these, and then snippet it together until it makes sense. So hopefully by the time of the end of my editing, all of this makes sense to you guys and it's concise and orderly. But thank you for watching, and go give Dylan a look at his channel and support the Ciat Lonbarde community, etc.